Welcome home, brave heroes. I'm Ash, this is HeroQuest, and today's going to be a bit of a shorter video, but I'm going to present to you the new MegaQuest Monsters pack from Deathtone, available on drivethrurpg.com, linked in the description below. I've done a couple of reviews for Deathtone's MegaQuest line of products now, and I try to point out where the designs of things have improved over time. This will be no exception, and I definitely want to introduce you to what these cards are. But before we get in here, just note I've already taken off the protective bands, which is usually part of the unboxing presentation process, and we'll just go ahead and discard the manifest card. And we'll note that there are several copies of cards in here. This is so you can keep track of all the possible entities that have appeared on your board. And you'll note we have 8 orcs, which means we probably have 6 goblins, and that is true, which means 3 abominations, and so on. We get to the undeads of the pack, and suddenly it is evident that this is not just designed for a base game amount of monsters, which I'm a big fan of. This is actually designed so that you can incorporate the expansions that have additional monsters of the skeletons, the mummies, the orcs, the goblins, the abominations. That's right. So if you're playing with the game system as well as the undead expansion or the greenskins expansion, you should have enough cards here to cover all of that. This one actually comes with its own Zargon card, which is pretty unique. You don't usually get a representation of Zargon himself or themselves with a deck of enemy cards. But the second half of the deck, we get even more skeletons, even more orcs, mummies, and it just goes on like that until we've exhausted the contents of the monsters. Don't worry, we do definitely have a Gargoyle as well as Dread Warriors. And there's the additional abominations that I was looking for. Finally, we have 5 more cards that explain the monster card rules. They have the monster level chart on the opposite side. Ideally, you could hand one of these out to every single player and keep one for Zargon. And a link to the MegaQuest Discord server. All right, so we've got the cards. How do we use them? We'll take a look at the instructions and read them verbatim. Monster cards are pretty easy to use, but there are a few rules that you will need to go by if you wish to have a fun time. 1, only roll on the movement table when the monster is outside of melee range. 2, if you roll something and it doesn't seem possible to do, then treat that roll as if nothing happens. And 3, only use the AI tables if the monster is in combat with one of the heroes. I suggest outside of combat, give the youngest party member the task of moving the monster. Of course, in this scenario, you are Zargon. You can definitely tweak and adjust things based on your party of heroes as per usual. We'll look at the monster level chart here in just a bit, but first we're going to start with the humble Goblin. The Goblin has a series of what could be construed as mind and body points on the card. You'd have to use a separate tracking mechanism such as a dry erase marker or pencil to make marks in these circles and then clear them when you're done. Each monster has a number of abilities, such as Retreat, Scavenge, or Small, and of course the stats, which will mirror the stats of the monsters in the base game. Just a friendly reminder of what those stats are, basically. There are also different points put into the disciplines of the monster, so you could further your role-playing of these monsters and create scenarios which make these stats relevant based on your other MegaQuest decks, which do make these stats relevant. On the opposite side of the monster card, we've got that monster's AI table. It looks like you can roll a d6 for an action, extra action, or movement. And so if we do that, this particular goblin has a 3. They're going to use the ability Scavenge, and that means drawing an equipment card and equipping it. They'll drop this equipment card when they are dead. Again, for the extra action, that's a 4. So this goblin will do nothing. And then for movement, we'll go ahead and roll a 4. And that's 2d6 move in random direction, Scavenge. So as you can see, it's not always going to be entirely clear what these instructions mean. We may need to reach out to the developer to make sure that we get clarification on some of those abilities. This may mean that it moves and then scavenges, thereby perhaps picking up a second equipment card or replacing the first. Again, that should be Zargon's call, thereby giving Zargon the authority to customize these cards to their liking, making them more yours, so to speak. We'll look at the Orc as well. We've got 3 abilities here: For Honor, Grab 'em, and Rage. With For Honor being pick a target, gain +1 attack per brawn point. Can't switch targets until it's dead. Now, this Orc, and actually all of the Orcs because it's the exact same card, has 3 brawn points. So this is always going to be 3 points, right? Still, you could actually take these cards, since they are all the same, and make minor adjustments to each one, making each individual monster spawn on your board a little bit different, kind of RNG almost. So these 2 orcs have just 1 brawn point. If I happen to draw cards for them, they'll be a little bit weaker. These 3 or 4 orcs will have 2 brawn points. These orcs will all have all 3 brawn points, and so on. You could even add additional brawn points, maybe to the orc that has the notched sword of the old edition. I don't know what you're doing with the new edition, because we don't have the notched sword in the new edition. But you could still have where you write in extra brawn points for that. Grab 'em. A goblin within 1 space can climb on the orc, adding their attack to its attack. 1 goblin per brawn. So 3 goblins. 3 goblins can climb onto this orc. And rage. Add damage equal to brawn to each attack until end of turn. Can't roll to defend until rage ends. So interesting abilities there. And again, you're getting enough cards so that you can play with all of the applicable expansions. For orcs, we've got 16 cards. That accounts for 8 orcs from the base game system and 8 orcs from the Greenskins expansion. All right, I'm curious about the Gargoyle more than anything, because you're going to encounter the Gargoyle in the very first quest of HeroQuest, and you may have a Zargon that is choosing to use this card. And so True Stone, if the Gargoyle is killed, spend 1 mana to become a stone statue, gain X, defend. X equals brawn. On the plus side, if you're playing with kids, this is going to be a great intro to algebra. Warlord, all allies within the same room or 6 spaces gain X attack and defend until the end of turn. X equals ritual. And flight, the Gargoyle can move through anything except walls for X turns. X equals acrobatics. So again, if anything seems a bit conflated or redundant, it's because we're making references to things that are actually explicitly stated already on the card, but this layer of information, this additional layer of references, does allow the Zargon to make changes to the discipline. Perhaps it can be buffed by spells or the presence of other monsters or under other select special conditions. And if that's the case, then this reference is going to change. And so that's useful. That actually makes this a little bit more flexible. So we've just encountered this Gargoyle in the Cinder Room of the trial. Spoilers for the trial. And we rolled a 5 for the action. Ranged attack if within 4 spaces. I don't think this guy can do any ranged attack, so we would just be skipping the attack. 4, use ability flight. And then for the movement, 2d6 movement, random direction. Definitely going to be really crazy to use these as your sole way of moving the monsters. Definitely having a golden rule, like if the hero is within range or adjacent to the monster, just have the monster attack that hero and then move. But still, the utility is here. And now for the monster level chart. Add up the total number of stats for each character. Use this chart based on the character with the highest number of total stats. Do not include equipment into this calculation. Note, these are cumulative. If your party member is past 24, add +1 to the next alternate colored stats for every 2 stats. Okay, so if your total number of stats for each character equals 16, then add +1 to all blue stats. So going back to this, here are your stats, and the stats have special colors. They'll either be white, which means they're going to be unaffected no matter what kind of level increase you're applying, red, or blue. And depending on the monster, which stats are white, red, and blue vary. So like for the Goblin, the blue stat is attack. For the Gargoyle, the blue stat is mind. And these are the ones that are going to increase on this very first level up, according to this card. If the total stats are 18, add +1 to all red stats. Now it does say add up the total number of stats for each character, which seems vague until you get to this paragraph. If your party member is past 24, so this means the heroes that are in your party. So this deck is actually making the monsters stronger if you have more members in your party with higher stats. This could drastically affect the difficulty of the game that you're playing, so it is something that I would say use in moderation or only once you understand the level of play that your players are at. Like, what's their actual skill level here? And is skill going to determine whether or not this level up system is more challenging and rewarding, or is it just going to steamroll the heroes? Which, I mean, I'm all in favor of steamrolling the heroes. Go for it. Flatten them like pancakes. We'll take a look at Zargon really quick, just because I'm curious. We've got Summon. Spend 1 mana to spawn X zombies or skeletons within 1 space. Flip a coin to choose. X equals mental. And Magic Attack may attack up to X spaces away. For all magic attacks, use Mind instead of attack. X equals mental. And from the back, Zargon can't be targeted until all monsters within X spaces are killed. X equals ritual. He's got 3 attack, 3 defend, 5 body, and 4 mind. His disciplines equal 3 mental and 2 ritual. I'm sorry. Zargon needs to have at least 6s of everything. He has the fearful power to command entire armies and sway people to his influence. He's tough. No, but I really appreciate the different interpretations of Zargon, and I think that there's nothing wrong with having a card that represents Zargon. And of course, as Zargon, you can homebrew this to be whatever you need it to be for your group of heroes. If they're facing Zargon, after making it through all of the quest packs, they're going to steamroll him at this point, so you're definitely going to need to spruce this one up. Okay, so I do want to note that these cards were provided to me freely. Thank you very much, Deathtone. I also wanted to complement the UI. I think things are more readable than ever. The size of the text is something that I've had a criticism about in the past, and it looks like there's a lot more attention paid to the sizes and styles of the fonts, making things really easy to read, scan over, find information. All of that's really important to me, and I'm glad to see it's being implemented here. There are still a lot of circles on the cards. I think we could probably combine these and make like block shapes up to maybe 10. I'm not a designer, I'm just saying, when are we ever going to utilize that many body points? Are we going to have a goblin that has like, what, all 15 of these? That's a really annoying goblin, which is actually on brand for goblins. So now in the past, this creator has used artists that used generative AI assistants to create the visuals for the cards. And it is very much worth noting that the creator, in response to feedback about the original AI generated art, proceeded to have his product upgraded with actual artists' work. This is just an observation, but I think I am seeing some pretty clear signs of artifacting on these visuals. Just overall, the art is fairly low res and it's pretty dark in a lot of places. Like there's excessive shading just to cut down on the amount of detail that we would have to look at. The wizard has weird flowing lines, inconsistencies in the beard. The goblin has sections around the eyes, just little things like that. But that's just me as more of a paranoid observer looking at this stuff. I'm not making any claims, and I believe these artists are ones that claimed to not use AI, but still, the musculature in this orc's shoulders, it still makes me highly question things. And then the abomination, I don't know. It really is kind of an abomination. And look at the way the Dread Warrior is holding that shield. But I only observe this because the AI art is a big deal for some people. It would be a big deal to me as well. So I know for a lot of other people, it's not a big deal. They don't care. This is just worth observing for those of you that do care. And that is it. Please let me know what you think. Comments below about the MegaQuest Monster cards, and I will see you in the very next episode. Thank you very much for your kind generosity, Deathtone. If you liked this video, I hope you'll consider hitting that like button, helping it spread across the platform. If you like videos like this, I hope you'll consider subscribing. And if you've been around a while, why not check out the Patreon links below? Until next time, have a fantastic rest of your day, and bye for now.